Thank you so much for joining in. And yeah, so this is the research augmentation hackathon, and I'm really excited to introduce Jack, who is an independent AI alignment researcher. And Jack, take it away with your presentation. And yeah, I'm really excited, and also I think a lot of people here will be inspired.
Yes, hopefully. All right. Okay, so accelerating alignment. Um, this is a direction that I started to think about 2.5 years ago when I first started to really focus on alignment research. And the first project that we were working on was basically scraping all of the alignment literature on the internet with the goal of initially building the infrastructure for using more capable models down the line. And now that like data set is being used on the back end of Stampy, and they have like a vector database and a bunch of different things improved upon it. Um, and that's like feeding into the context of the model, but you can use that to like fine tune models or doing all these kinds of things. And then I kind of put it to the wayside because I was like, well, models are just not that good right now. And it would be better for me to like spend a bunch of time like focusing on like becoming a really good researcher and having a understanding of what are the steps of research, what are the bottlenecks, um, instead of just jumping right into building what I think other researchers would want. Um, so that's kind of what I did. I spent time like doing Meginterp. I spent time doing like scalable oversight stuff. Um, I like did some eval stuff. Like I've kind of touched like various parts of the alignment research directions, and now I'm like, okay, well, I'm still doing alignment research, but like I feel like I need to collaborate with more software engineers to get all of the ideas that I've like thought about in the past 2 years about what would be useful for alignment research, and kind of collaborate with people who are maybe better at like building things in terms of software engineering than I am, or like, I'm trying to not do everything and um, just trying to focus on the things that I'm good at so that I like don't spread myself too thin. So this like entire like hackathon is kind of a jump off point of accelerating alignment, cyborgism, these kind of agendas meant to accelerate alignment differentially, not trying to focus on like what can we build to accelerate research like as a whole, but thinking about like are there things that we can do now so that once we get closer and closer to crunch time, once models become more and more capable, how can we like throw these models, this level of compute, to alignment research so that we make the best use of our time? And so there's like two different things that we can think about. We can think about like the current speed ups that we can do in terms of augmenting alignment researchers. And then we can think about like once we have capable AI systems that can actually do AI agent stuff, then how can we build the infrastructure so that we can point them in the right direction? So I'll be like kind of going over some of this over the talk, but that's kind of a high level overview of this, I guess, research direction. All right, so I'm just going to be talking about the different like categories for accelerating alignment research. So one direction that we can think about is like automating alignment, which is kind of the thing that like um, OpenAI was like trying to do, which is essentially this like approach of like using AI systems to automate the entire process for alignment research. One thing though is like in the past, people were kind of against this kind of approach because they were saying, well, you're like fighting Godzilla with Godzilla. Like to be able to like automate alignment research, like you actually need to have an AI that can automate AI research in general, not just alignment. And by that point, you're like already dead. Um, and I actually like kind of disagree with this. I do think there are like big parts of alignment that we can automate much sooner before we like actually have capable systems that can automate AI research in general, um, or like automate it to the point where we have like a fast takeoff. But yeah, like this is like a frame to think about. Like, are there parts of the direction that we can automate um, in terms of like not having a researcher in the like loop for like that specific part? Now, like there's the augmenting alignment researchers direction. And this is like, okay, how can we like leverage AI systems to augment researchers in their process and not just trying to think about how can we like automate an alignment researcher? And one reason you might want to pursue this kind of direction, at least for now, is because LLMs might be really good at specific kinds of things. Like they might be good at describing concepts or research that it's seen a lot in its pre-training data. But when it comes to like new insights, like a new like SAE paper that came out, or like things that are like really frontier knowledge of the field, the LLM might not be as good at like outputting that kind of insight. And so maybe what you actually need for now, if you're trying to design, you're trying to like leverage LLMs, is you're trying to use them for the things that they're actually good at, while like using that to augment the researcher and kind of do this like symbiosis between the two to accelerate the research process and use humans for what they're good at and LLMs for what they're good at. And then eventually you like probably do expect that you're going to be able to like automate AI like research and alignment research. But at least for now, there are things that we can do to augment alignment researchers, but we just need to be very careful about like what are the things that alignment researchers are still good at that the LLMs aren't good at, and how can we use the LLMs to augment those researchers. The other direction is like cyborgism, which is very closely related in the sense of like there are tools like Loom and I guess now you could call there's one called Pantheon, which I'll go over, where like you're trying to do this thing where you're keeping the agency in the loop for the alignment researcher, and you're just using like base LLMs to essentially guide the process. And the reason you want to use like base LLMs to like, let's say, generate 10 possible directions and then have the researcher pick one of the 10 directions and then generate 10 more. You're just like doing this like tree search while keeping the like human in the loop to be the discriminator. The reason you want to do this is because the base LLM has not been RLHF'd to hell and is like able to like spit out things that are maybe more interesting than what you will get out of an RLHF model. And one reason you might think this is because when you're doing RLHF, you're like giving a thumbs down when the LLM is like outputting anything that is like kind of speculation or things that are like out there. And so you might be like mode collapsing your model to essentially not try to like produce like novel ideas, because the like it's going to remain in distribution of things that are like fairly easy for it to get a high score, and this like means that like part of the distribution is like kind of gone from your like RLHF model. So when we're thinking about like using LLMs to augment alignment researchers and producing novel research, you might be highly dependent, or it might be thoughtful to think about, okay, maybe I can use RLHF models for some things, but I should also consider using base LLMs in places where it makes sense. Now, the like issue with base LLMs is that they're very hard to wrangle, and it's like very difficult. Most alignment researchers are not really going to like use base LLMs for the most part, because like you just want the LLM to like output you the thing that you want. You want it to answer your question, and it's like so difficult to like get this right. And so like the additional cognitive load and all these things that come into play are just so annoying that people just don't naturally end up using them. However, there might be ways to like prompt the models or do these kinds of things for the researcher, such that you're like lowering the friction and the cognitive load, but still benefiting from the like non-mode collapsed features of the base LLMs. So these are like things to think about. Yeah. Uh, what else? Yeah, basically just described all of this. Um, and like I was saying earlier, like part of this like entire direction was like trying to think about, okay, like let's think about GPT n minus one, which is like the pre like fast takeoff or fuming AI, which like might not be as much of the case anymore. Like maybe you have like more time than you used to, but we were trying to think about like what are things that we can build beforehand such that like we're like saving valuable time and crunch time as much as possible. So like when you're thinking, and this is like something that Sam Altman says for like startups that want to build stuff, like don't think about what you can build now. Think about like what like don't think about the current capabilities of AI systems. Try to think about like what can AI systems be good at in 1 to 2 years, and can I build something to like with that expectation of capability in mind. Now, I think that like it's fine to do both in the case of what we're doing, but it's like worth keeping in mind that like try not to like you don't want to make the mistake of building things that the market will build by default. Um, and then you like spend, I don't know, 3 months or whatever building a thing, and then the market builds it because or the models just becomes capable of like doing the thing. And so you just like wasted like 3 months of time because you like ended up building the wrong thing. All right. So So for this entire research direction, we're thinking, how might we build an AI system that augments alignment researchers to get us 5x, 10x productivity for the field as a whole? Like, I don't want to pursue this direction if it's like, I mean, it's still kind of useful if you're getting 2x speed up, right? It's like really good. But like, if we're trying to solve alignment, we have to like think really ambitiously about like, what are the things that we can build that like really move the needle for the field as a whole? And like, so I say as a whole here, kind of, it's like worth thinking about like, okay, maybe there are like specific features that are like will accelerate individual researchers, and then maybe there are specific features that like accelerate the field as a whole. And it's like worth thinking about like there are some tools that like maybe actually accelerate the field as a whole if you like only accelerate like a few researchers and then everyone else follows suit. But the like key thing to try to do is like how can we like 5x 10x the field the productivity of the field. And then yeah, so when I'm thinking about like tool building, there are like two mindsets that I'm trying to approach it from. I'm trying to approach it from a efficiency angle and a like objective angle. And this is what I mean by this. Like if we're thinking about productivity, right, we're thinking about like efficiency times objective times time. And like, let's throw away time for now. We're thinking about efficiency as like you have GitHub Copilot. You have like some kind of tool that is making you more efficient at the task that you're trying to do. Um, and and that's like good. That's you're making like you're much faster. You're more productive. However, um, it doesn't matter if I build a tool that makes me like researchers more efficient if the objective that they're tackling is the wrong objective. If they're not tackling super alignment of like more capable systems that are like might be more capable than us, or like trying to like solve this like pre-AGI thing so that we can like then use AIs to like solve alignment for us or doing this kind of thing. Like if you're not tackling the right objective, it doesn't matter if I give you 100x speed up in efficiency, I'm like multiplying by 0. So when I'm thinking about like the perspective of like how can we build tools for accelerating alignment research, these two perspectives are useful. It's just like they might be different tools, and like and it's just like worth thinking about like, okay, what are tools that are useful for efficiency, which I think most people gravitate towards, and then what tools are like going to nudge the direction of the field in a direction where you're actually you're producing the kind of research that is aligned with your like the optimal objective. And so it's like, okay, what kind of tool would like allow you to do that? And it's just like I think is a useful like frame to think about. All right, so let me like try to like give you like a bunch of like seed ideas that like are the kinds of things that I would maybe want to like have built, or like questions that like maybe get you thinking. So how can we like proactively pull insights from new research and ideas, like let's say from like less wrong and stuff. So like right now you're having to like be a researcher and like search for the thing that you want to search for. And that like requires like some level of activation energy and some level of like moving, directing the AI system and like going up and cognitive load and all these things. So how can we like build a system that is looking at the open questions in the field, looking at things that the researchers cares about, what is the specific project that they're working on, and proactively grabs insights from those papers uniquely specific to like that researcher, and is like balancing the act of not giving them too much stuff, while like giving them actual valuable ideas. So like kind of trying to like make models more proactive and less like the chat interface that we're having. It's like thinking about like, you have a really good like research collaborator or like, you know, PhD supervisor. Like if you have that, like what are the things that those people do? They actually proactively do things for you. They will say, oh, I read this paper, you should read it. Like you're like talking about a specific thing, you're pair programming, you're doing these kinds of things. It's like useful, I think, to start to think about AIs less of a Google and more of a like research collaborator that is like more proactive in the research process. So when you're feeding these insights to the researcher, how can you make it consumable, and how can you make it like actually work with them, so that it's like valuable to their specific project? Um, yeah, and another thing is like, how can you design something that is keeping track of the open questions that the researcher is specifically thinking about and feeding that into the system? Like instead of just providing a summary of a paper, you're like actually pulling insights that are relevant to the specific questions that they have in mind. So yeah, okay. And then how can we improve the LLM experience for alignment researchers? So one like thing that I like find quite a lot talking to like other alignment researchers is that prompting takes like doing good prompting takes a lot of time, and not everybody's good at it. And you know, it's you end up not using LLMs to their full extent because you like or just need to like get an answer really quick. You don't want to take all the time to like craft a really good prompt, and so you actually just don't do this, or you like stop using LMs fully. So it's like would be really good to have a like crowdsourcing or like a conscious effort to like design helpful prompts for researchers, such that they don't have to worry about this part of the process, and you just like lower the friction for like making LMs more useful for alignment research. And that might be like a useful place to think from. It's like what do specific researchers do in their research, and then how can I craft a like really good prompt, and it doesn't, you know, it could be like it's a like 200,000 token prompt. Like how do you like make use of that token space as much as possible? And just really thinking about like if like money or whatever wasn't an object, how could we like make it actually like 5x their productivity in this sense? Yeah, so yeah, reducing friction. And like I was saying, like maybe you have to like talk to specific researchers and do things that don't scale, where you're like designing prompts specifically for them. And then eventually maybe this like leads to things that scale. But at least for now, you're like trying to like work one-on-one with a researcher, and maybe this like 2x or 3x is their specific workflow. And that like leads to further iteration and improving the system as a whole. So simple experiments can be done quickly, but not a full project. So one thing that I'll mention is that like, I think that one issue with like current AIs is that if I ask it for like good projects for like doing alignment research, it's like probably not going to be that very good. But like alignment researchers have like a lot of things in their head and have like good ideas for like where the model maybe should go, or like are working, and maybe have like too many ideas. And oftentimes this is what happens when you're like a year or 2 years into like being an alignment researcher. You have too many ideas for like what you can pursue. And it's like possible to like throw up a like coding notebook in 24 hours and kind of get the initial like idea out there, but then it like takes like several months to like go from like notebook to like full like research code base that can then be turned into a paper and is like verifying all the things that you want to do. And so like a big bottleneck in the process is like maybe less so the like seed ideas and more like the process of like going from initial experiment to like a thing that is like publishable in a like actual paper or conference or whatever. So what are the things that you can do in that process to like help researchers along to go from like MVP to like actual like code base that is testing like multiple models, multiple data sets, like is able to do like multi GPU stuff, like all these kinds of things. Yeah, and then it's like maybe useful to think about like if we're thinking about alignment, it's like what are specific tasks in interpretability research, in evals, and other like alignment specific research. Like maybe there are things that like don't cover the entire gambit of like alignment research, but will speed up a specific direction like pretty fast. Yeah. So another thing is it's like what can be done to use AI agents for automating alignment research. And I think it's like this is like a pretty unexplored direction and is super underrated because people just kind of have initially had this aversion to using AIs for automating alignment research. But there's a paper which I can link to, which is called Maya, and it's a paper called a multimodal automated interpretability agent. And this is like a recent paper from MIT where they basically use an AI agent with multimodal capabilities to do interpretability of a computer vision model, I believe, and essentially use the AI agent to do like come up with hypotheses, run an experiment, learn from the hypothesis, then come up with a new hypothesis. You're just like doing this whole like scientific loop. And this might actually be like possible really soon to automate some of this kind of research. Where you can think about SAEs, you can think about like red teaming, you can think about like different types of evals, and yeah, so like doing alignment research in that sense. But in other ways, you could also use AI agents to do things like knowledge discovery, or like you're looking at many papers, you're thinking about like what kind of paper would be like really useful, like instead of just using like semantic search to like be like, okay, what are papers related to interpretability, you're like actually using an AI agent to think about, okay, like are there connections to like neuroscience, are there connections to like this subfield or whatever, you're like helping it brainstorm where it should go, as it's like trying to like grab knowledge from the literature rather than just kind of only taking the question from the alignment researcher and then doing like semantic search to find papers that are semantically related in the embedding space, but it aren't like actually relevant to like producing novel research. In reality, you're probably just going to use both. But I'm just trying to like, help think about like, how can we use AI agents in this sense? Okay, moving on. How can we nudge towards better objectives and experiments? So, so in this sense, sorry, I was looking at the time. So in this sense, I'm trying to think about like you have a bunch of independent alignment researchers who don't have like a PhD supervisor. How can you design an AI assistant that is keeping track of like good like metacognitive skills, or like helping the researcher do this thing where it's like I could do this project and I want to pursue this direction, but then it takes them like 3 months to like actually implement this project and then gain like a amount of bits of information. But if you're trying to do like really good research, one of the things to think about is like how can I spend the least amount of effort while gaining the most amount of bits? Meaning that like maybe you can do a small version of that experiment in like 3 days rather than 3 months. So how can we like design AIs or prompt LLMs or as they're engaging with the researcher to help them come up with like more principled ways for approaching the research, such that they're like actually doing the like MVP approach rather than wasting months of like, you like see this quite often in research where somebody will spend 3 months tackling a project and then will not be able to like we'll only find out after 3 months that this entire direction is useless. So like there are like good metacognitive skills that we know like that come from good research that we're trying to think about how can we like use LLMs to like nudge the researcher in the right direction and pursue the better objectives or like the better MVP. Yeah, and then another thing is like accelerating implementation and iteration speed. Like this is like a super important thing that Ethan Perez from Anthropic mentions quite a lot. Where like one of the key defining factors between like having good research and not is like being able to like actually implement ideas very quickly. And so I think it's like really good to think about how can we design LLMs to like help researchers implement things much faster. One like thing that like Ethan mentions is like you want to keep your GPU running. You want to have like an experiment running overnight every day. And so like how can we like prompt the LLM to prompt the researcher to like have them design their projects in such a way that give them the most bits of information as they're going. Okay. So yeah, connecting ideas, generating new ones. Let me try to like fast forward to the slides. I mentioned this earlier in terms of like building infrastructure. Other things we can think about is like we can think about alignment research, but we can also think about like security and governance. So like maybe alignment researchers like are like mostly fine in like terms of like doing alignment research, but like don't know too much about like security and like AI control and these kinds of things. And because of that are like not pursuing these like research directions that are like maybe actually more important. And so how can we like prompt the LLMs or like design a system that like can get them up to speed in these like other domains that are like actually really important for like making systems safer. Yeah, and then like another thing we can think about is like a collaboration connection maker, where it's like keeping track of the different strengths of different researchers, different projects that they're working on, and trying to like nudge the researcher to like form collaborations that in such a way that like doesn't like try to like spread themselves too thin and try to be good at everything, and is like focused on the parts of the research that they are actually good at. All right, so I will try to like speed through this. So what I talk about, or one of the projects that I'm trying to work on is like an alignment research assistant. And this is like trying to build on top of VS Code. And you guys can like search it up if you want. There's a tool called Continue, which is like, I believe what Cursor, the IDE, which is a fork of VS Code, uses. And it's this basically, it has a chat window and it also plugs into as like a GitHub Copilot. And you can plug in any LLM that you want. And so I would like to have people that are like actually building like scaffold LLMs, including like search agents, plugging in LLMs that are like, you know, trained on alignment research to like help with like ideation, paper writing, these kinds of things. So that would be useful. Data sourcing and management. So like I said, I created the alignment research data set. And then like there are other things that we can kind of keep track of, like the really long prompts, like to caching the model, basically to like help researchers come up with better ideas. And yeah, just like storing all of this kind of stuff over time so that once we like have more capable AIs, then we can like throw these like big long prompts to the model and like give them like more direction of like where they should be producing the research. Yeah, more stuff. Let's see. Okay, design auto prompts for alignment research. This is like a thing that like some alignment researchers mentioned. It's like you're trying to when you're trying to do alignment research, and you like don't want to like spend a bunch of time like creating a specific prompt for you, but you like want to write the basic idea. It would be really useful to like feed that initial prompt, but like reprogram it in such a way that it's like actually useful. And I believe Anthropic has like an auto prompt feature inside of their API. but yeah, it would be really useful to have that kind of thing as well. Simulated paper reviewer is like you basically feed your model, and then it like gives you like a academic review thing. Um, this is like already kind of possible. Like I have seen people like put like math papers inside of Sonnet and then like do multiple iterations with like Anthropic's artifact and then convert it into like a actually much better paper. Jargon explainer is like would be useful too, to like not have to like context switch when you're like, and like be able to like quickly learn new things. Let me try to like run through some of these. Yeah. Okay. So, what might be useful is like having an alignment research code base that like makes it really easy to like go from like short project to like um, things that include like multiple GPU stuff, like best practices for like the code base, making it like just lowering the friction to the point where like people can build like high quality alignment research code bases by having like all the preemptive work done that we know that would potentially be used across many projects. And this kind of stuff you can actually feed into continue as like part of the like LLM, where you can do like at, and then you can like add in any kind of document. So we could think about adding like a less wrong post. We could think about adding a specific code base. We could add like a documentation. All these kinds of things can be quickly added into the context of the LLM inside of VS Code. So I'm trying to think about, okay, how can we like leverage this kind of thing to lower the friction for like researchers to quickly at like the new SE stuff or the new eval stuff, or just kind of designing like good code so that they can quickly iterate through the project without having to like use Claude, for example, and it's like not aware of the current like research advances and doesn't have access to the code. So you're like trying to like lower that that part of the process. What else? Yeah, math LLM would also be useful, connecting like a math LLM to like a continue for like more theoretical alignment researchers. Yeah, and then having a personalized research newsletter. What else? Okay, how does this like fail? Okay, if you're thinking about your project, I think it's like useful to think about like not trying to build the first thing and trying to think about how can your project fail. One thing is that you're not solving for a true bottleneck, so it's like useful to talk to actual alignment researchers. Another thing is it's just not good enough. You're like actually have to, maybe the LLM's not good enough, or maybe you just like need to like make it better. What else? Yeah, so like many amazing productivity tools exist, but for some reason people aren't using them. So like, what can you do to like make sure that like the researchers will actually end up using them? So for example, like this, like maybe like the difference of like having a like website versus like it being integrated into like something that researchers already use every day is like enough for the researcher to like go from like not using it to actually using it. And it's like annoying that this is the case, but it's like worth thinking about like as you're like tool building. Yeah, too much friction to get started, so they just like stop using it, and they don't know the tools exist, and it's hard to see the immediate value. What else? Yeah, it's just like not part of the natural process. Yeah, so existing tools I mentioned like Maya as an example. Pantheon.chat is the website. You can like look it up if you want. Like an alignment researcher built it. It basically has like LLMs that are like you're like talking to the to like as a journaling thing, and then you have like proactive LLMs that are like kind of giving you different suggestions for like the thing that you're ruminating on. Um, Elicit is another tool like for literature review. I think it's like really important to think about, okay, most alignment researchers aren't using Elicit. But it seems like a really good tool, and it seems like it's useful for like lit review stuff. Unfortunately, if alignment researchers aren't using it, then is it because it's like just not that useful for alignment researchers? Maybe that's the case, right? And like maybe it is really good for like social science stuff, but the kind of research that alignment researchers do, and like the thing that is like useful for them, which might not be like, grabbing the confidence intervals of the paper, this kind of thing. Like this is just not the kind of thing that alignment researchers do. So it's like maybe worth looking at Elicit and being like, okay, what is the things that it's like doing that is just not attracting alignment researchers, and what can I like change here to like actually make it useful for them? Another tool is Delve, which I will try to like go to. Hopefully you guys see it. And it's like kind of an interesting tool. Basically, you like you can talk to the model as a normal chat, but it basically picks out like specific things that you might want to delve more into. And then you can like click on that and it will like generate a new chat window that you can like continue from. And then you can be like, okay, what is this? And then it continues talking, and then you'll be like, oh, okay, I don't know what this is. And then it generates a new chat window. So maybe more inspiration to think about. Let's go back to the presentation. All right, Claude artifacts and projects. That's like a pro feature. I think it's like worth looking about. Novel Crafter is like a website for like writing novels and stuff. But they have this kind of cool feature where it like looks at like trigger words. Usually it's like for a specific character, for example, right? Like you have like a bunch of like information about a specific character. And so if you like have a researcher writing a specific character, you could add context to that. When I say character, I mean like to a specific word or whatever. You could add context to that word to the context of the LLM, and just making it like much faster for like the model to be aware of like what you're specifically talking about. Loom is another example. I'll skip over that. Yeah, so what can we build it with? We can build on top of VS Code and Cursor. So it would be great if people like kind of built on top of VS Code and Cursor as like extensions, because most alignment researchers are basically writing their code in there. And so I'm trying to think about, okay, well, maybe like you're trying to prevent context switching. Most of your code is already there. How can we implement all of the things that involve like brainstorming, just making progress on your research, prioritizing projects, all this stuff? If all of that can be fit into one thing, then you might be basically promoting the researcher to be more in flow and be able and prevent them from like going in their browser and then going on YouTube just to like look at a quick video, and then 3 hours later they're like lost. Like you just like gain productivity by like preventing this like context switching. Continue again. Exa.ai is like a really cool like search engine that you can use. They essentially like use LLMs, and they have a nice API that you can try out. Yeah, the research data set you can pull from or create your own Pinecone database would be really useful. I've talked to other researchers about this, to like integrate with like Google Docs, Obsidian, Rome Research, maybe like pulling from like the X bookmarks. I say Dewey. It's like a tool website where they like pull from the bookmarks, but X might be too difficult to do. Pulling from Less Wrong and feeding that into like the continue. Like you can just like at LW and then like the name of the post, and then it just like adds it as context to the LLM. What else? Yeah, if you want to test different prompts, I would probably suggest using the Claude console, which has like a nice feature for like basically writing like a set of different prompts, and it will like generate all of the outputs for that, and then you can like quickly see like which ones you like, which ones you don't like. There's like an open source artifacts from Anthropic. And yeah, if you want to build on top of that, that would probably be really useful. People find that useful. There's also like a document copilot. Somebody like built and one for the Anthropic. They had like a hackathon thing where they have an extension inside of Google Docs, where basically you like share the doc to like an LLM, and it like produces a bunch of comments to the actual document. And so you could think about like critiquing like a post or whatever, just making it really useful to integrate with Google Docs in this sense. I'll share the slides after if you guys want the links to the different things. One quick thing is like, I think it's like worth thinking about like things that are like built for like speeding up the existing work, and then things that unlock previously inaccessible directions. And the reason this is what I mean by unlocking is like if you have an LLM that can like take ideas and formalize them in like math stuff, like this direction just like wasn't feasible before. It required like way too much human labor. But like now, if you like have LLMs that can actually do this, then you like maybe unlocked in a previously inaccessible research direction that like just wasn't going to happen with like speed up of the specific researcher, but what's going to happen if we like designed LLMs that would unlock that specific direction. So it's like maybe useful to think from that frame as well. Oh yeah, one thing that I want to mention for like deciding projects is I don't specifically care if you if you build a thing from scratch. What I care about is like impact. And what I mean is like if you like design a like set of like extensions inside of VS Code and create a like extension pack and then like build like other stuff on top of that to like work with that, then it's like, and that's like really impactful, then I like would much rather you like spend time doing that than like try to build a thing that like people will already build by default, or that like you just like don't end up finishing because it like requires a lot of work to like build things from scratch. So like the key thing that we're trying to do here is actually accelerate research. So it's yeah, I like don't really care if you like build a thing from scratch, or if you like the thing that I care about is like actually solving alignment. Yeah, so things to think about for like LMs, like maybe they're better at like generating questions than like finding like great answers, because in their pre-training they don't have the solution to alignment, but they maybe have like really good understanding of like what is the good research process if we like prompt them well. And so maybe they like augment the researcher into like producing better answers by like, you know, breaking down the questions that of their research project. They're like breaking down the process for them to like actually make progress towards it, instead of, you know, providing the actual answer to, you're like trying to less so treat it as like a Google that is giving you the answer, and more treating it as like a research collaborator that is helping you make progress. Yeah, so it's like useful to think about what LMs are actually good at. I think we should like think about like reducing friction, reducing cognitive load, to help the researcher focus on the things that they're exceptionally good at, while like using the LLM to like free up that the like things that don't matter as much. Yeah, let's move on to the discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jack, for explaining everything. And also, like, I know you had to rush through the slides, so thank you for, rushing through them as well. And I think, like, you brought out a lot of great points about, coming back and understanding context switching for a lot of alignment researchers. And I hope, like, people are able to understand why, the sort of the hackathon is leaning towards developing things in VS Code. And yeah, I hope it inspires people to do that.
Yeah. So I think this is a like tricky question because, for example, like we could say that mechinterp could definitely be useful for capabilities as well. But I do think that like, at least in the current state of things, we can probably use mechinterp to like help with safety stuff. And what I would say is, like if you have an automated AI agent that is like helping you like pick out the different features and doing the thing like Maya or whatever, then you're like scaling up the ability for us to like fully understand a model, or like at least like capture all the features, and like maybe even run experiments. For example, you could be like, okay, if I tweak this kind of part of the process, you're like, now I can like modify the features in this specific way. So yeah, doing mechinterp stuff is probably useful. Doing like automated red teaming stuff with like AI agents, doing like I guess evals. Like part of one thing that people want to use LLMs for is for them to like produce better evals, but currently the models are just like not that good at like generating them. So creating some kind of setup that augments the researcher for like actually producing better evals is maybe part of the process. Like maybe you can't actually like prompt the LM to be, okay, produce me the best like situational awareness evals possible. Like maybe it just like doesn't, it's just not good at that. But maybe you can like create a setup that allows researchers to like think through like better like evals for that. I was mentioning like security stuff earlier. Like maybe there are like security types evals that like alignment researchers are like not that good at. They just don't know too much about security, but like you can like set it up so that they like can actually make a dent in that like subfield.
Yeah, I think
Um, what else?
go ahead.
Yeah, I maybe have like other ideas, but yeah.
Yeah, I think, for example, in some of our work, we've noticed that when we create these evaluations, often in papers and existing benchmarks, we spot that the dataset is clearly generated by a language model and the quality is accordingly. And so often you might actually think about ways that you can create prompts for people to quickly generate datasets and quickly create data sets. So for example, a great operationalization of deception would be a data set about scenarios where a language model is incentivized to lie or something like this. And if you can generate this really quickly, that can, for example, put your research at quite a level of acceleration. Maybe another question, and maybe the last one before Archana takes on logistics, so we stick to the schedule there. I'm curious to hear maybe a few more thoughts on the difference between a 2x acceleration and a 5 and 10x acceleration. So one of them is that you mentioned the objective targeting and actually making that better, but going from an ambition level of 2x to 10x seems like a significant step, and maybe you can add a few more thoughts to that, and maybe some of the key considerations for participants here to think about.
Yeah. So I think that if I make researchers better at like writing code and stuff, then it's just going to be like 2x. You're or like you're not like really differentially improving the field as much. And it's the kind of thing that like, okay, maybe also like doing evals, like helping people do better evals or whatever, is like still only like barely doing 2x improvement. I think it's like actually kind of hard to like predict like what's going to be like the like 2x or 10x thing. But I would probably assume that like the 10x thing is like some kind of scalable solution that we can throw a bunch of compute at the problem. And then like part of the reason I like mentioned like augmentation stuff or like infrastructure stuff is like you're trying to like build the initial infrastructure, the seed ideas, the things that you want to like point the AI agents towards so that they can do a bunch of the thinking. And so I kind of have this like I guess like little idea that I've like been ruminating on like lately about like the alignment bidder lesson, which is um, like if your like research direction is not taking into account um, the value of like amount of compute that you can throw at like alignment, then your like research direction like may be worthless. And so like I'm trying to think about like directions where if we could throw like let's say we like work with a government and we can like throw like $1 million or more of compute at a like specific part of the alignment challenge, then you're like you've like reached the level of like thinking from your LLM that is like not possible at like smaller scales and like that like researchers themselves can't do. So you're like, which parts of the problem can you like throw a bunch of compute and like hopefully solve this kind of thing? And like some of those things might be like related to like evals or like properly eliciting all of the like capabilities of your like language model. Probably like if you're like if you're doing the thing with like mechinterp, right? It's like you're like trying to like reverse engineer your like your entire like model. It's just like not going to be capable from like a human perspective. But if you can like if you can like throw a bunch of like AI agents to like do all of that work for you, while like kind of keeping humans in the loop in like the specific parts, then like you can actually go from like 1x of like researchers trying to do this by hand to like you've like thrown a bunch of compute, and like now you have like a million more researchers than you like used to. So yeah, I'm like kind of excited of like those kinds of directions where you can like use a bunch of compute for like actually doing the research.
Awesome. Well, that's definitely inspiring, and I hope people in the audience were also inspired to create some ambitious projects during this weekend and differentially improving alignment research. I'll hand it over to Achana for the logistics slides, but thank you so much to Jacques and you know, everyone sitting at home now clapping for you. So thank you so much.